human evolution goes through stages. And when a humanoid population is in its infancy, which is where your humanoid population has been in, it often plays out the idea of separation or polarity. Black, white, good, bad, etc. But as a civilization begins to integrate those polarities, they then begin to move into a more integrated experience. You might call it higher consciousness, you might call it a more balanced reality. And that nexus point is happening in this time period now on your Earth. Now, when we say this time period, what do we mean? We're not talking about today, we're talking about a generation or several generations in both directions. Transformation takes some time as you count time. This point in time now that you are experiencing is a crucial nexus point in which the choices that you are making are paving a brand new path for your future. There was a major shift in consciousness. It didn't come from outside of you. It came from you. Because the mass consciousness began realizing, began seeing it could not continue along the trajectory it was on and still get to a place of integration. So the change is coming from you. We have to be really, really clear about that. So now you've changed trajectories in your timelines. As we read your energy now, this trajectory will take you to the place of integration, the place of, we don't want to say an idyllic reality, but let's just say a reality that many of you have imagined and wished for a long time. But what does that mean? That means that the structures that have been built, that were part of the old trajectory, are going to need to shift. Now, we don't want to say collapse. We don't want to say implode and all of those dramatic words. We don't want to say that because that's not the energy that needs to be put into this type of thought about the future, because that will only, in a sense, sabotage it. Structures have to shift in order to support this new trajectory. So, in a third density society, there are many things that serve as identification with that third density reality. One is economy. Because in third density, there is very much the idea of get. The ego wants to get. The ego's more dominant in third density. The ego wants to get. So that is economic idea, economic energy. But in fourth density, that drive is not there. That get drive is not there. There is instead a realization that, wow, there's something more to existence than getting. And so when that realization happens on a collective level, there has to be a shift. So if you have then, in third density, a model of getting, it has to be based on the idea of growth, continued expansion, gobbling up the competitors. Expand, 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 gobble up, gobble up, gobble up, until then what? You've overextended, or there's nobody else to gobble up, etc. That model is not self-sustaining. It cannot continue. So, since this new shift has happened, this new shift in consciousness, a new model must be built. And that new model will not be based on the idea of growth, will not be based on the idea of assimilation of the weakest. That new model, we would say, there are many words we could perhaps give to it, but the idea of sustainability is a really great way to express the idea of the new model. Because sustainability is based on integration, based on balance, rather than the idea of polarity. And so, right now, if we were to say the word sustainability, you would think of it as an environmental thing. And that, of course, environment is connected with the economy and everything else. However, can you apply the term sustainability to economic structure? What's really exciting for us here is that if you're thinking about the idea of sustainability in an economic structure, you are starting to move very much into a Pleiadian model. My civilization, which is a fourth density civilization, we still have physical bodies, we still have lives and children and homes, but it's very different. Our model is based on that idea of sustainability. It has nothing to do with growth. As an example to illustrate what we are speaking about, you might call the Pleiadian economic system the equal value system. That's what the best way to translate what we would call it. Equal value system. What does this mean? Oh, should we use the analogy of Angela and the socks again? Let's say, because we know how much Angela loves sewing socks. So, let's say Angela makes socks. That is her passion. Nothing else fulfills her as much as making socks. And let's say that Joy, well, Joy's husband and you, let's say you build houses. All right. Now, in a third density model, a sock and a house are not equal. In a fourth density model, if Joy needed socks, she would go to Angela and say, I need socks. And Angela would simply give her socks. If Angela needed a house, she would ask Joy, I need a house. That's absurd, you might say, because it is so absolutely unbalanced. How could that be? However, in a reality where there is no perception of lack within the self, there is no hoarding. And when there's no hoarding, everything becomes equal to everything else. No one feels they have to have 50 houses. No one feels they have to have 200 pairs of socks, so to speak. So it's based on the idea of sustainability because everyone can get what they need, but there's no drive to get more. This is, of course, a very dramatic example, but we use the example to show you eventually where the third density model will move into the fourth density model. Now, the key element here, the key element as to what model a civilization expresses has to do with the nature of consciousness. So in third density, if the consciousness is expressing the idea of polarity, then it expresses the idea of lack and the opposite being abundance. But a fourth density model, there is no such thing as lack and abundance. Consciousness totally shifts. And that's why there's no hoarding. That's why there's no fear. There's no manipulation. Now, you're a far way off from a fully Pleiadian expression of economy at this point in time, but the shift in the economic structure on your planet has actually been your first step toward the fourth density model. Now, let us tell you one other thing, and for some of you this may be more meaningful than others who might not yet understand the model that we use. As we talk about the transformation from third to fourth density, up until this point in time, we as extraterrestrials have identified your civilization as a third density species. However, we as socio-cultural extraterrestrial anthropologists will now define you as a fourth density species in its infancy. This is huge, huge. Embodying this understanding is huge. Because when you embody this understanding and you can view the changes on your planet from that point of view of the bird rather than the human who is suffering, that you shift your neighbor. You're going to have to be the way showers because you can recognize what is happening and be of service in this way, grounding the new reality.